I was making a very original idea.
No, not a corner.
Hi, Red.
Hello.
I'm just curious. Thanks for your work. She's not there. Student council up to the whole scheme. And I was like, it was a little different than in high school. That was crazy.
Thank you. Matt, can you hear me now? Hi, I'm Becky. I'm not hearing you. Hi, nice to meet you, Josh. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, Jake. Hi, Kyle. Thanks for being here. They can hear me. Certain parts. Yeah. Matt can hear me. Okay, talk. Alright, it is 6:31, so we're gonna start the regular meeting of the Osceola Board of Education with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please, if you'd rise the table. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, our regular board meeting is called to order. I'll do a roll call. Jan? Here. Cesa? Here. Brooke? Here. Corey? And myself is here. Item C, person who requested an audience of the board. I have the form and I don't have anybody that requested an audience, so that'll take us to item 2, which is the consent agenda. Or you have the consent agenda before you, what would be your wishes? Motion by Cesa? Second by Corey. Yep, any further discussion?
So my question is on the high school, summer school stuff. Why is, I see the remediation piece and I see all the skills, which is great, and I'm excited about that. But why is just the personal finance class done in the summer and maybe not other high school classes?
Because we have a teacher that was interested in teaching over the summer. So they want to make the flexibility in the schedule so that students can take that required course. If they want to over the summer, then they have more flexibility in their schedule.
So if other high school teachers were interested, it would be entertained as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yep. I was just curious why we only had one, so.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just that I'm sad to see some of these names written.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item 3, which is the annual reorganization and delegates of the board. So we all received the review of the school board officer roles. Any questions, comments, concerns with that? And then we move on to item B, which is to determine the procedures to elect the school board officers. Mind opening it? 'Cause I can't see anything. Traditionally, we, open the floor for nominations, go through the roles, and it would be a voice vote unless somebody objects or came forward and wanted a written vote. I don't know.
This is the WASB one, so it's
Oh.
long,
Alright.
30 pages.
Alright, let's move on to item C then, unless anybody has thoughts, comments, questions about the procedure to elect school board officers.
I read through that document, I don't know when to see it, I don't see else like.
Okay.
Of what role specific. Do you have questions? You
No,
knew
I
it
looked at the
tomorrow.
document too.
As far as our local position, that's what I was.
Alright. So there are no questions on this item, then we will move on to item C, which is election of school board officer positions. So with this item, I would entertain a motion.
Hold on, but. You're skipping down here. Never mind, that's me. Go on.
No, I would entertain a motion to open the floor for nominations. For all of the roles.
I'll make a motion to focus.
No, we need a motion to open the floor
I'll make a
for
motion to open the floor for nominations.
There's a motion by Cesa,
I'll second.
second by Corey. Any further discussion on opening the floor for nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay. The floor is now open for nominations.
I'll make a motion to put Culver.
Alright, and I will accept that. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of myself as chair say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. I will accept that. Next role would be for vice president. Is there anyone that would like to make a nomination?
I'll make a motion to nominate Cesa for vice.
There's a nomination for Cesa, do you accept?
Should you ask for this more? No?
We
Okay.
just do that first.
Yeah.
Okay, you accept. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Cesa as vice president say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. Congratulations. Next up would be clerk. Understood. Is there any nominations?
I'll make a nomination of Brooke White as clerk.
Alright,
I would say accept.
Yep.
I accept.
is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Alright, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay. Congratulations. Next role would be treasurer. Is there any other, no, is there any nominations?
I'll make a motion for Corey.
Corey, do you accept?
Yes.
Alright, is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Corey as treasurer say aye. Opposed would be nay. Congratulations. And director,
I'll make a motion to appoint Jan.
Jan as director. Jan, do you accept?
Yes.
Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? And I have to ask 3 times, sorry. Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Jan as director say aye. Opposed would be nay. Congratulations. Item D, review the 24-25 board meeting calendar. Well, it's a draft. The goal is to look at it tonight. We're
kind of look at some potentials if anybody has any, potential conflicts right off the bat. That way we can come back and it's fluid and we've got some time.
I believe that, I know that I would not be able to attend July 17th.
Either can I.
Okay.
So the complement should say 2024, correct?
No, yeah.
Yes.
Instead of 2023?
Yes.
Okay, no, I just wanna make sure.
It's just a draft.
Make sure that.
So-
the dates all-
We'll look at July 17th and possibly moving that date.
And I know I'm going August 7th.
I believe I have a conflict August 7th as well. So we will look at that too.
I have a conflict on September 4th, November 6th,
November 4th, November 5th,
March 5th,
March 5th,
May 7th, and June 4th.
May 11th.
I know I have another meeting on the first one of every month.
Okay.
So that. And the August one, which Brooke said.
August 7th, okay. So we will look at that feedback, April, and we'll bring it back to committee.
Is it usually the second and fourth, is that how you schedule your site?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand, thank you, because I don't really pay attention to the cadence, just sure that.
They have the second and the fourth
Okay, got it.
Oh, no.
Wednesdays. At least when I first came on the board, and prior to me even coming on the board, they were always the second and fourth.
It's done. It kind of depends on where they fall, because some months have 5 and then we end up later, but we'll look at them and we wanna make sure all of us are available to go.
I also cannot attend June 12th, which is right before this calendar is made out of the line.
Like, are you talking like full June of
It's
like?
like in a few months, June of 2024, June 12th.
I can't, I don't know if I can make the 26th, I gotta look, I'm on a school field trip to Italy, and I'm not sure if that's dated back or not. So there might be a potential
What month?
this upcoming June 26th. But I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. All right, TBD. As far as calendar goes, time-wise, 5 o'clock committee, 6:30 board meetings seem to work.
That was me, it was supposed to be a full course.
Becky, that works for you? Perfect. All right, that'll bring us to item E, which is appoint the Cesa and delegate.
Well, you've been it for the past so many years, what's your take on it? You enjoy it, you hate it?
I love it. I would not be opposed to continuing.
Anyone else have great interest in doing it?
What day of the week is it for?
It is the second Thursday of the month. At 7:30, at 7, yeah,
You said at 7:30?
7 o'clock. Sure, like, or virtual, depending on. Well, need a motion.
I would love to make a motion to have proposal as a CISA 11 delegate.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Corey, any further discussion? That being said, the annual meeting for the CISA board is June 3rd, I believe.
Yeah.
And will not be in attendance because I will be out of state, so if anybody wants to go and see what the CISA meeting is like, I would welcome somebody to one of my place. We don't have to send someone, it's not everybody goes, so, but we can talk about it later. June 3rd is a Monday night, so. So there's a motion and a second, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item F, appoint the WASB delegate.
Without discussion, I would love to nominate Brooke Polly for that delegate.
further
Do you hear
discussion?
I would like to, I'd like to share
Okay,
that I was the WASB delegate
okay,
for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
you made it.
I did,
Yeah.
and I actually, I think you'll learn a lot.
Okay,
It's
good.
held during the convention, so I don't know, like if you know for sure you can't do the convention.
No,
or
I already
something.
put it on the calendar, going to the convention.
I think that it's really helpful, especially your first year. It's just really neat to see the process and be in a room. Yes, it's hours long. In the first year, it was during COVID, so it was virtual, so it was even extra hours long, like 6 hours long. But I do think you'll like it.
Okay.
If you really don't want to, speak up, but that's the motion.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay.
And don't be intimidated that it's your first year either. We
Okay.
talk about all this beforehand.
Awesome.
All right, item 4, aligning and developing our facilities to best meet educational safety and security goals. Item A is review and approve the spring community survey. And we have Bill Foster is on from School Perceptions, and Matt Holford is on from Grid.
Alright, so we talked about bringing it back, we had a conversation about community survey, is this something that we want to step into now? And where are you at, if you had some feedback from people, what are you thinking?
Bill, can you refresh our memory on the, demographics piece as far as the non-parent, non-staff to, parent-staff ratio that we typically see in communities and how that is weighted in the survey?
Yeah, so a typical community would have approximately 75% of their community neither works in the district nor has kids attending the district, so that would be what we call our non-parent, non-staff. And about 25% of your voters have kids in the district, or i.e. parents. So when you look at community feedback, you always want to put more weight on those non-parent, non-staff groups.
So I as a parent fill out the survey that would come theoretically with my own code in it. It comes through you. You don't have any identity attached to my survey, but you do know what classification I'm in as far as parent or non-parent, non-staff? Or is it based on what I check?
Based on what you check.
Got it, okay. And then we get survey results that have just the survey results, but then you kind of interpret it a little bit to pull out theoretically what it would look like on an election day, correct?
That's exactly right, yeah.
It's like we've done this a time or two, Bill.
Yeah, in fact, I'm looking at your report from 2022. And that's exactly right.
And when we surveyed in 2022, and I looked at it, it was to build a new elementary school offsite or renovate the existing. Those were the 2 options we put in that survey, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, option 1 was to build a new elementary at 41.81 million. And option 2 was addition renovation, creating a like new elementary at 36.84 million.
So that's kind of the unique circumstance we're in, is the question we asked our community at the beginning of this month, I guess, was option 3, which we essentially didn't have on that survey.
That's correct.
Can you remind me, with that survey, did we hit our target number of responses we were seeking for it to be valid result?
You did. So we had an 18% response rate. We had 947 folks respond, which was better than the 778 we had in 2018.
Thank you.
So it was a higher response, and that's absolutely right on the average response rate for a community survey for us.
Bill, this is Becky. I'm wondering, like, what would be the benefit for us with having an unsuccessful referendum right now, doing a survey now versus waiting till the fall to do something then?
Great question. So the districts that are considering a survey now is affectionately what we call the post-mortem survey. And so if voters rejected, what you would do is gather feedback how did you vote? If you voted no, why? And what were the reasons? You didn't wanna change grade levels, you didn't want to add on to the middle school or intermediate school, whatever it was. So you would get feedback on the different variables. And then essentially the value you would get is not only that data, but you'd also get permission to try again. So you would ask the question, what should we do now? Do nothing at this time, or refine a plan to try to deal with our aging building. But it's very difficult to test an actual plan because we don't have a plan yet. We're trying to figure out why people voted no. Another strategy though is to wait. And that's a perfectly good strategy, and that's just to wait and let the dust settle a bit, let emotions calm down, then re-engage after a beautiful summer and say, okay, we're back again. As you might recall, voters did not support what was proposed. Now we've got some different options we want to run past you. So it's a little different tone, a little different survey strategy, and depending on your situation, either would make sense.
So the waiting would also allow us to have more time to say what are the other options people could consider. Or, and then I'm wondering, because at this point in time, what would we have on the survey to say, what are you willing to accept as far as options? Would we just do like a threshold of dollars?
You really don't. What you do is you would tease out the variables. Should any plan forward maintain all 4 schools, or should we continue to try to downsize or right size and consolidate? So you would tease out the decision-making variables in the survey, but you would not necessarily, you don't have a plan, so we're not gonna be testing it.
Would you facilitate like a dollar amount and break it down that way, or is that not the best way to go?
It's funny, we had this exact conversation earlier today with another district. I think that's difficult to do because the dollar amount has to be associated with a plan.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what your plan is, it's difficult to put a dollar amount.
That's fair.
So people really react to 2 things. One is, what are you gonna do? And how much is it gonna cost? Now, it is true that the majority of the folks care more about how much it's gonna cost and what it's gonna do, but in a spring survey right after an April failure, it's very difficult to get into an actual solution because we don't know. We gave the community our best solution.
Okay, so you call this survey a post-mortem survey, what do you call the fall survey?
A new birth survey.
But like, I sit here and I of course very much want to know and understand, why it didn't pass. And also I don't wanna spend money that isn't gonna give us the next place to go.
True.
So that's where I feel like
Well, is it fair to assume we could do both in a fall survey? Because enough time has elapsed for the board and district and our teams to build out the options.
It is. It's much more logical at that point because otherwise you had this idea all along, you didn't tell us, right? And you need some time to develop those options, to work through it. And then you can do both in the fall. And then it would say, as you may recall, voters rejected a plan in April. We've done some work. And we've come back with some options.
So hard.
Then it feels like, then it's appropriate to be coming out with a new plan.
And just as a reminder to the board, and Newbrook, I don't know if we've got nicknames yet for board members.
We're working on it.
Newbrook.
I love being Old Brook.
Even though we would be waiting until fall, we still need to keep our foot on the gas as a group because we would wanna land the survey in mailboxes in September-ish, Bill?
Right.
So that means we need to approve a survey by August. So I want you to consider the strategy of surveying today versus surveying in fall. That basically is saying, the next possible date we would consider for referendum would be April of 2025, which is appropriate, the year from when we previously had. A survey would come out in September, your results would come back in November, something like that. And you would adopt resolutions in December or early January. So again, just as a reminder, not saying we need to decide tonight, but I do think we should keep facility planning as a priority at the board level over the next 2 months if we want to do that survey in the fall.
Look, it's just a catch-22, because I want the information of why they said no, so I know how to move forward with the plan.
Right.
It's hard.
It's a little bit of a chicken and egg.
Yep.
I think we can get both as long as a group, we are willing to test multiple options on the survey in the fall.
Sure, sure.
I think that it's hard to come back and say, this is the only option we're willing to consider, because we didn't get feedback from the community, the statistically valid feedback as to why they wouldn't support the prior.
Sure, sure.
And that's not the end of the world. We thought we tested 2 last time, we can test, I don't know how many you'd say you're comfortable testing, but 2 or 3 probably.
Right, you could test three options, and I think that's perfectly fine.
I'm sure though, the longer the survey gets, the less people are likely to respond, right?
That's true, yep.
It's pretty sweet. I think we can do a nice job if you as a board want to test 2 or 3 options. I like it in a way because you're admitting to the community that you don't have a plan and you want their voice in shaping the direction. I think there's valuable data and credibility gained there. The key is whatever 3 options we put out there, if one of them does get support, even if it's not my option, I have to get behind it.
Exactly.
In 2022, did the survey show that people wanted to build or renovate?
It was darn close.
Yeah.
Here's I'll actually just show you, I was looking at it earlier. Let's see.
So those people either changed their minds or decided it's too expensive.
Or, I mean, that wasn't that option.
Right,
It was a
adding on
totally
was
third
not
option.
close enough to build.
The biggest difference too from the 22 survey was the tax impact piece. For those that were on the board, what was communicated, we were talking, $30 a year per 100,000 in property versus what we just went through. And that was because of the defeasance strategy that you had been using, and how you wanted to message that.
So that's a great, Bill, if you can leave it right at the slide for a second, actually, Shannon, question regarding that, because I've had quite a lot of feedback on what changed between $33 and $10 per year to then what we asked then the impact was to this last year.
And I'd have to go back and look at what it was based off in 22-23 versus what it was on 23-24.
Because the building project numbers didn't change,
It's about
they changed a little bit.
Yeah, it's more regarding the tax levy and what came on and came off the tax
It was
levy.
really your mill rate had dropped further, right?
Yeah,
And it was the defeasance strategy of you were using defeasance to create debt mill rate capacity to pay for one of those 2 options, which we didn't use moving forward,
so
which created the increase.
that additional levy amount was to keep it in simple terms.
That's very complicated for community members, I will totally admit that.
Yeah, no, and I've had some people that have been asking me, and I'm like, well, it was different. I mean, we knew it was different. I mean, it's different even if we go to next year, it's gonna be different than it was this year. It changes every year, so.
I think we'll have to do some nice bar chart work of what was it in 20, what was it in 23, what was it today, so that people can see all 3 together, those that want to understand it.
Sorry, Bill, side note.
So really the answer to the mill rate impact change as far as the option was slightly different than what we tested. But the total cost was in between the 2. So option 1 was build new, option 2 was the kind of add-on. But you can see the people were leaning towards building new, but it wasn't a slam dunk to do it right. So
Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're looking for the board to Now, the agendized item was a spring survey. I would guess the board could say we wanna go ahead with a survey, but we're recommending it be done in fall. Let's develop a strategy for continued facilities planning between now and August. And again, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the general direction we're looking for from the board.
That's absolutely what I'm looking for, is what direction do we wanna go? And you're right, the agenda item clearly says spring community survey, so we don't have action for a fall survey at this point in time. But the idea of like, what do we, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done as far as what do we want to have on the survey if we were to survey in the fall.
Lauren, what's your thoughts on survey? Spring, fall, or other? Yeah, Emma, what do you guys think?
No, I was actually gonna say something, so glad you did. I think if we test now, we're gonna get emotionally raw, truthful responses because it's something that just happened. If we test later, people are gonna have more time to process everything that has happened because we didn't have this referendum this year, and how to move forward for it. But the fall test will get us exactly, I wrote down, this is what I wrote down. I wrote, when you test in the fall, you'll get responses to your answer. And when you test in this now, you'll get answers to their responses. And so if we have an answer presented that we want to test, then like if everyone's thinking now and they're like, okay, this obviously didn't work, but I have this great idea that I know like is gonna be the best solution, then we can go for a fall vote and think, all right, like we have these ideas already. But if we're really struggling on, we really thought this was the best option and we don't know where to go going forward, then the emotionally raw, truthful, current vote would be our best option. Emma?
Yeah. I think if you ask now, they're just gonna go and be like, this is why I said it on the referendum and stuff, whereas you ask them later, they'll be like, this is what happened.
My fear with asking now is that we're gonna go, man, I wish we had some data to support why we're moving in this option.
Well, and we've already got some solutions in place, like, I feel like maybe we should let some of those, cause the emotions are gonna come with that, they already have started to fuel in with that, so there could just be a lot of emotion and not actual thought into your answer, yeah.
Well, and one of the questions that you can ask on the survey now is like throw out a couple of just random options for ways that we could move forward. And that way, if we have an overwhelming option for this new plan that we just thought of, then that would be our current data to show that, like, if we went in that direction, we'd be like, oh, well, we got overwhelming responses on the spring survey that said that a lot of people want to go in this direction. So.
Well, the agenda item at hand is to review and approve a spring community survey, so if there is someone that would like to make a motion to approve the spring community survey, now would be the time. Otherwise, if there's no motion, we will bring it back to a future meeting. I'm not seeing any motions jumping out, so I think that's where we're at. All right,
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, board.
thanks Bill, thanks Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Alright. Alright, and item B is review the school resource officer grant.
I'll grab the
roll, people.
Well, this is kind of out of the blue, but not really. Had an opportunity to have a conversation with AJ, that's our chief of police over there, sitting in the audience, and talked about would we ever be interested in having an SRO? And the admin team met with, AJ, well, actually Terry and I met with AJ, and then we also talked as a leadership team about how do we feel, how could an SRO impact our school district, where are we at, would the board support it? So if you look up there, the idea, the administration definitely advocates for an SRO on campus. And, looking at not because we're concerned about crime or campus violence, more about having another resource to foster positive relationships, addressing concerns, having those people in the building with us on our team to address, something as simple as truancy can be addressed face-to-face without a ticket, with a personal relationship. And we also have other guest stars here that will be sharing with us that are currently working in the St. Croix Falls School District with some SRO collaboration. So these are the other school districts around us that have school resource officers currently. It's great, we always like to compare and see where we're at. Clearly, we're not on the innovative place that all these other places have there. But this is what AJ brought forward. There's a COPS grant that's available right now. It's community-oriented policing services. I think it's weird to keep saying COPS repeatedly, but it's an opportunity for us to get some funding to give it a try over a 3-year period. And we'll hear more about the funding piece, but this grant is actually due in the middle of June. So that's why we're talking about it right now, to say, where are we at? Do we think we want to take a step in? So at this time, Mark, the school superintendent from St. Croix Falls, and then Officer Tyler, who is the SRO at St. Croix Falls, are just going to share some of their pieces and parts and what's been going well for them over there. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You starting or what?
Oh, well, I've looked through the PowerPoint and a lot of things to talk about. I guess, there's a lot of benefits to having an SRO. I love being there. It's one of the biggest things is just the community relationships with the staff, with the students, just kind of everything. It's kind of the biggest thing. It connects law enforcement. Like, it's not just a guy with a badge and a gun. People see me out and about and say hi all the time. I would say one of the things I didn't really see in the PowerPoint that you guys listed for is a guidance counselor. I would say that's kind of one of the biggest hats and roles that I have at the school is not always law enforcement related, but it's just talking with kids when they're having issues. They come to me a lot when it's sometimes they might not feel comfortable talking to the guidance counselor or teacher, and they seek me out a lot, and I really appreciate that. But there are a lot of law enforcement things that you guys wouldn't really expect, and a lot of backdoor resources that go directly through me straight to the county. A lot of people don't always necessarily see what I do because I'm doing some work in my office, but I try to be out and about as much as possible, and so people can see me and stuff. Anything else?
Well, yeah, I think it's important to understand that he's not a police officer as most of us in this room envision a police officer. He still is dressed as a police officer. He's usually in his full police officer garb, but the goal of having an SRO in our buildings was to get rid of that connotation, whether you're a kindergartner or a senior in high school, of this guy's bad because he arrested my parents, or he arrested me, or he gave me a speeding ticket. It's to get rid of that and to show that police are human and that they are just another adult in the schools that you can form a relationship with. I've been in several different districts, large, small, medium, and it's very applicable to any size district. One thing that I guess I wanna make perfectly clear, you're not hiring another assistant principal. That's not his job. Now, does he help out in discipline? Periodically, absolutely. He'll help out if there's some investigation to be done. He helps out by bringing information to our guidance department or our administrators. Maybe there was a fire last night and we hadn't heard about it yet. So it's just another line of information. It's been a fabulous ad. And I know there's at least 5 people sitting at that table that are wondering how we're gonna afford this. Because certainly the pot of gold in my right-hand desk drawer is just about empty. I'm sure Becky's is the same. It's just a matter of a priority, and I know as board members, you hear administrators say that all the time. We just gotta make it a priority. The COPS grant will help pay for this. If the COPS grant, this one is similar to the one that we got, it's a 4-year grant. You can spend it, you can accelerate the spend. You can't spend it all in the first year. But you can accelerate the spend, but you commit to 4 years. So you spend all your grant money, you can't say, I don't want to do it anymore. But it gives you a 4-year test drive, and after that, if it's not a positive experience, or if times get even worse, then you can say, we're not going to be doing it anymore. But when I approached my school board with it, I made it real clear to them that my admin team thought it was a really, really good idea. And we had some people on admin that had been in other districts that did not have good experiences, and they would be his biggest advocate right now. They would be right behind him. If I had to make budget cuts and I suspected that I was gonna get rid of this program, they would fight me until the last nickel was found. Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind. So, you know, funding, it's like everything else in education. Are there things that you've been doing for a while that maybe it's time to refresh? Whatever that is, every district's different. Like I said, I've been in a lot of different districts. I'm a huge proponent of the SRO concept, not just having police officers in buildings. That's a different concept. This is a better concept.
Mark, I have a question for you. What year are you in bringing in the SRO? This is your 4?
You're in your 4th year here.
This is, no.
That's your 3rd?
Yep.
Okay, then we're in our 4th. I thought it was 5. No. Yep, you're right. So we are out of the grant cycle, and we split the cost. We took a 260-day work year. We have him for roughly 170, 180 days. We are a 75-25 split. So the city benefits because they have an extra officer during the summertime, and that's another unmeasurable benefit. He's already got a relationship with 1,100 people that all of a sudden he's out and about. They see him, they wave hi. They've got a good feel about the police officers. And then during all break times and that kind of thing, Aaron's got him as a street officer. You know, and almost always, and I'm not gonna say always, he's here when the kids are in school unless he has a court date, or unless Aaron is really strapped and, you know, there's some health issues, he might have to go be on the street a little bit. That's very rare. So we've been very pleased. My board has been very pleased. I don't know if there's a negative thing that I could get anybody to say. Now, I will grant you, we have really one of the best, and that embarrasses him, but that's too bad.
Well, Corey holds you in the highest regard, because every time you kept talking about Officer Tyler, and I was like,
No, I'll speak right now too. I love it. And again, you might be right. We might have one of the best. So I haven't seen a bad example. I've seen a great example, and it gives me hope of what we could have in this district if we got someone even half of what Officer Josh Tyler offers the St. Croix Falls district. I've seen kids that are on my caseload that don't really want to talk to anybody about stuff, but beg to go talk to him.
Yep.
That in itself, I can't even look at those kids the same way. No, I'm kidding. It's great, because the whole point is that you want to make connections. You want every kid to feel comfortable talking to somebody, and we've added that with him for these kids that always felt like they didn't have someone that they felt comfortable talking to. That is huge. In this day and age, I will fight tooth and nail for mental health, and having an SRO in our district has helped several of our students with that factor. I'm totally down for this whole option here. But again, you know, we've been lucky with him. He's helped me with some other stuff too, like when it came to issues with some of my students with my alternative school, and truancies, we've had great conversations.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's nice to have that right at our hand to help figure out how can we get this kid to come back. We're missing a kid, and I think it's happening more and more nowadays with just mental health, and since COVID, just everything took a turn. And so to have that at our back and call anytime we need it, that's also a nice factor. And again, I also think, it does help with the image, a positive image of police officers. There's nothing wrong in saying that. I think it helps, and just another reason why, again, he does a great job though. Every kid, I think, truly enjoys having him around.
Can I ask Officer Tyler what a typical day in the school district looks like for you?
Yeah, I mean, they're all different. Today was quite a day. But, yeah.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah. You know, it all depends. I would say it starts 7:45, 8 o'clock. I usually get in the building, and then I wait till after, especially the parking lot to clear out. So 3:45, 4 o'clock is usually when I'm heading out. But day-to-day stuff, I mean, it could be handling little stuff all day, or it could be handling a big investigation, which it can be from time to time. I would say most of the day is honestly building a lot of relationships, with people. That's like the biggest part of the job, and probably one of the most important parts of the jobs. But I mean, I kind of deal with everything. It seems like there's always a mental health thing, or there's truancy stuff. I mean, I got a kid a ride to school today that didn't have a ride. Like, that was kind of an untypical thing, but I made a phone call and got a kid a ride to school. Just kind of different stuff. I would say, I'm always kind of seeing, usually during any like passing time and stuff, trying to talk to people, and like lunch periods and whatnot. Can't really get into like some of the details, I guess, of like what happened today. Like today, I just had a little bit more of an investigation where I had to talk to some kids and whatnot. That was definitely law enforcement related kind of stuff. But like the breakdowns of a day, I mean, it could be 100% dealing with law enforcement stuff, or it could be there's no law enforcement stuff for the day. So it's just how you want to focus.
Do you interact with all grade levels?
Yeah, I would say it's mostly middle school, high school. Just the way our building setup is, though, they're together, which I think is awesome. That they don't have to move buildings as much. I get into the elementary school not as frequently as I like, just because it gets so busy at the high school and middle school, to be honest. I went there quite a bit last week for it was like education for child abuse. So I work a lot with the guidance counselors, and they try to incorporate me a lot, and I really appreciate that. I like getting into the classrooms, especially guidance, teaching about child abuse, drug abuse, stuff like that. So.
And not that we couldn't get this training somewhere else, but he coordinates an awful lot of training for our staff, whether it's Alice training. We brought in our canine officer a few years ago, or canine handler, and educated our staff on what it takes to train those animals and what they can do and what they can't do. It's just a lot of things that you might not get if they aren't in the building. And I had some people say, well, he's there doing police stuff. Well, if he wasn't there, we'd call the police department and they'd come up and do police stuff. So, don't get me wrong, he does do police stuff, but we would have probably called 911 anyway on some of those things.
So I think of like this school year, we've had a few instances, whatever that word is, of like a student having mental health crisis on campus. Is that something you can respond to?
Every time that crisis is called, I need to be called. Because there's been incidences where like crisis, someone called crisis and it got handled, and then more happened with the story, and then I had to step in anyway at some other point. So it's like, and every time like there's crisis, you know, the kid doesn't need to get chaptered and taken to Winnebago every single time. And I think, and that there isn't, it seems like a report isn't always like generated or taken as seriously sometimes, if it's like through like the county or like through somebody else that's not me, right? So I feel like, because it's law enforcement's determination whether that kid is chaptered ultimately. So if you go to the hospital in Wisconsin, it's my call whether they're gonna go, and I kind of know how it's gonna go before we even get to the hospital. So yeah, every time, every single time, yeah.
Cause our officers get there quick, but I would assume an SRO will be there a little quicker.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Did you apply to be the SRO, or were you just given the direction?
No, I wanted to be the SRO. I was working in the Emery Police Department before. They didn't have an SRO at the time. I was waiting for an opening in St. Croix Falls. Came over, and then they had an SRO for a year, and it kind of just really wasn't his thing, and I was really happy it wasn't, and I took it over right away. So
that's probably the most critical question that needed to be asked is getting the money. Obviously is the biggest hurdle, but after that you don't just hire somebody and say, oh, by the way, you're the SRO, because if you don't like kids, that might be a challenge. And if you don't take a different approach, he can't play policeman all the time as we view policemen or policewomen. So the hire is critical. Now, we know there's a nationwide shortage of law enforcement, as much as there is educators. But if you can write the grant and you can get the money, it might be a while before you hire, but hiring the right person is critical. And I don't just mean for the first time when you get the grant, but every single time. And this guy could grow old being an SRO, and I think he'd be the happiest person in the world. And we'd be glad to have him that long.
And he'd be an excellent mentor.
Yeah.
So are you an employee of the police department or the school district?
well, the police department, I guess I would have to say first, yeah, but I'd be on both of their websites.
They're on both our websites, but he is a city employee. He gets paid by them, gets their benefits, and then we're billed for the cost of his employee. And then, really once you have the agreement drawn up between the city and the school, there's very little additional expense. Occasionally there's a training that he goes to and we'll split those costs. And of course, he has technology like we all do for our jobs, and about every third or fourth year he needs a new computer. We split that cost. But as far as a car goes and that kind of stuff, our police department already had extra vehicles, so we didn't get stuck for that kind of cost. And when that car goes away, we still won't get, that's in our agreement that the city will provide the vehicle. And so we do have a marked police car in our parking lot. But he is a city employee, so technically I have no jurisdiction over him as far as discipline, not that there's been a need, but the police chief would be the person I would call if he does something that we don't think is appropriate.
Were kids afraid at first when you showed up? I guess maybe that would be more applicable for the person who had that first year, but.
I mean, I still think there's kids not necessarily like afraid, but they can be like standoffish.
Sure.
And I mean, it's just getting to know the kid and then building a relationship, and then their attitude kind of changes. But I mean, some kids are a little bit like standoffish, like I said, because they previously had some kind of law enforcement involvement that wasn't ideal. Like they got taken away by law enforcement because of their parents' issue, and I try to come in and show them that cops aren't bad, right? So.
And he's just another part of the fabric of our buildings. He's as common as the teachers, as the administrators, as the custodians and cooks. If he's not here, he gets noticed. If he's there, he's supposed to be here. So I don't think afraid would be the right term, but for the first few months, it's going to be inquisitive about what's going on here. And you really can't educate the kids prior. Hey, we're going to have a police officer in the building all the time now. I think it would fall on deaf ears. But after a few months, it's like everybody else that belongs in the building.
Yeah, just a couple more slides, and then we can, so the investment part that we were just talking about, so about, it's a grant, federal grant. This one said a 3-year grant period. AJ, is that right? I just took it off their website.
I don't recall if it's a 3 or a 4-year
Okay.
period, but
I think it's a 3-year grant and a 4-year commitment.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And then the St. Croix Falls model is down there at the bottom, what Mark shared. We talked about that part. But ideas on how the SRO could serve our district, I mean, right, building relationships, the education and information. There's a lot of trends and things that happen in our communities that we might not even be aware of because of how we are doing our work, so there's that opportunity. They also can send students out, like we've had police officers come in and send our seniors out with a conversation about here's some things you should look for, and we've divided them by gender, and we've had conversations. But again, that's coordinating with somebody in a different place and a different time, and that person's not working there anymore, so then you kind of lose that consistency. Focusing on the underlying issues, and I thought that was really important when they came and talked to us, when Mark was sharing, like, right, they're not an enforcer. The why is the student truant, not here's just your ticket, have a nice day. They're building a relationship. Why is the student using alcohol? Then they try to solve the issues with us, as opposed to, you know, they have another thing to do because they have to get back to the office. And it also reduces the number of students that are introduced to the justice system. If we can get out in front of some things, maybe we can stop some of that. And they don't get involved in school-related discipline. If we have an issue, unless they're invited in, they're not part of that. That's at least been my understanding. And like the administration helping us perform our safety assessments, noticing and naming pieces. When we have drills, being part of that and saying, hey, have you thought of, or did you see that? Helping us all memorize the door numbers instead of calling it by the person who works next to it, things like that. And then I know Mark talked about training and additional training. I mean, here's an example of a training that an SRO gets, like adolescent mental health training. And we could go in partnership, like Scott, Amanda, and Julie. I mean, we could all go with and have a plan together. So again, the idea of building more support and having more resources. And then, of course, the why now, right? Like, all of a sudden you show up, you start talking about SROs, and you have guest speakers, and you have slides. Well, it's because the grant is available right now, and it's due in June. And, you know, we do have willing partners. I mean, AJ sitting in the office, he's saying, yes, we'll do this with you, we'll partner with you, we'll write the grant. Devin, same thing, downtown at the village board, because right, they have to do most of the grant writing because it's through their organization. The relationship piece, you know, we're all really big on that as a team. Response time, I think you addressed that just briefly, but again, having people right on site that can have these conversations. That safety, security, it's just another adult on campus, right? We have kids that connect with all different kinds of people, it's just another one. Community partnership with our local police, and that the administration is in support and sees the value. Well, questions and wonders, and essentially that's the question that we have, is do you support us moving forward? Because we can also apply for the grant and get it and say, yep, never mind, we're not gonna accept the dollars. But we won't have dollars unless we try. And we could apply and not get it, because we also had, I think it was, Terry, was it New Richmond that said that they had applied and they didn't get it multiple times. So then they ended up not being able to have a grant offset there.
So I guess part of my question is, municipality wise, so, employee of the village, but we have 7 municipalities of students that come here that are taxpayers at least. Any foreseeable, you know, issues as far as that goes? Yes, if anything physically occurred in the school, right, it's in the village, and I understand that piece, but as far as enforcement, legality of having kids that are, like, say, from Somerset in St. Croix County, that's...
Oh, no, it's like a kind of a resource, right? So like, a lot of the times, there might have been something that happened outside of the town or village, but I can still take an initial report on that and then forward it to the next officer. So no, it's not really a conflict. I mean, the only conflicts that I've seen is like some of our school bus stuff.
Yeah.
Where I have to hand that off to some of the county guys because I can't write a ticket for school bus violation kind of stuff. But no, it's more of a resource actually. Yeah.
And I think it's also important to talk about like AJ, how often do you interact with the school?
I just pulled some initial numbers, and I think we've had 88 calls for service in the last 2 years at the schools.
And that
So-
probably doesn't count for the times that, like, maybe I call your cell phone and just say, hey, what about this?
No, those are, we would generate just a, kind of a basic call. Otherwise, I believe we've had close to about 60 incident reports. And usually we draft those if, you know, there's a ticket that we write, or if there's criminal charges, you know, kind of a more serious incident, so.
Thoughts from the team? Chairs over there.
My previous district in Richmond, echo what Corey said. It was a great resource, developing relationships.
So they applied for the grant and didn't get it, but still went forward with getting an SRO, like just paying out of their own?
Yep. They decided to share costs because they felt it was so valuable.
Okay.
And they still have one?
We still have one. Same one that they started with.
AJ, is there, I mean, I know I think we're short officers in the village, town, whatever you call it already.
Yes,
Do you see this being a position that's
I think,
able to be filled?
I don't know. SROs are, they're a unique kind of
Yes.
officer. And it's very possible if we throw an application posting out for an SRO, we would get some more applicants that would be interested in that specific position. But I'm not gonna lie, I mean, it's gonna be a hurdle, you know? Once we approve this position and go forward, we are gonna have some challenges because we're having a tough time hiring regular police officers right now. But I think that if it being an SRO position, it would have that unique qualifier to where it may attract someone looking for that specific niche, if that makes sense, so.
Do you see it being something kind of like St. Croix Falls has, where I'm not putting anyone on terms or anything, but like a 75-25%?
I would like to, I think that we share culturally and similar campus, you know, sizes with St. Croix. I would like to try to model what they have going on as a starting point.
Seeing that maybe possibly mutually beneficial?
Yeah, you know, I know that they've been touting it for quite a while, and, you know, Josh seems to love it, and
Yeah.
I love our school district, and when I graduated here, that was kind of when SROs started becoming a thing
Yeah.
back in '06, and I think that the relationship building, like what was mentioned, as well as just giving a little bit of relief to the regular street guys and gals would be a huge benefit, you know, worth looking into.
Right.
Do you know where they would be housed? Would they have an office in the high school or here in?
We haven't really got that far. I would say yes, they have space, because they have to have space that's private where they can do their work and have their conversations. I would see it also being very important that it's in all buildings, because presence matters.
Well, this, agenda item is just review, so are you wanting just like a verbal, I would
Yeah.
support this, or?
We wanted to do kind of a litmus test, because to ask somebody to write a grant and to have the board not interested, that would feel horrible to me personally. So, like, I can say, yay, I think it's a great idea, the admin team does, but you guys are the decision makers for the district. So, it's not an action, because the action would come if we get the grant, then it's, do we wanna move forward? It's more of a, are you interested in exploring this opportunity?
Yeah, Emma?
Yeah, from a student point of view, I think that this would be amazing. Like from a student point of view, I think that I would feel relatively safer. Just as we see trends happen nationwide with threats to school districts, having someone inside the building that we can use as a resource who is trained for events that regular teachers may not have the resources to be trained for is extremely helpful. But also, it's gonna help with a lot of the smaller things indirectly, just by having someone inside the building
that's gonna slow down a lot of the other issues that we have going on. But I think it's also a great resource for a career field. You know, if people had if students had questions about possibly going into that, you know, they have someone immediately that they could talk to. But yeah,
I hadn't thought about career field, that's awesome.
that's all I'm thinking about right now, so.
Hashtag seniors.
That's on my mind.
I think it's a good idea to have one in our school. It could bring a more positive way to deter like the different situations that happen, even if it's just like, my friend said this kind of argument, whatever. And it could add a more positive approach to how students see law enforcement, you know, cause they might have a bad experience with them. Oh, so, you know, the police took away my parents, so they pulled me over and gave me $1 jillion ticket, like, so I don't like them. But then having someone there that they could talk to and be like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not all of them, right? And then, it would also help with like, you know, if they have an issue or a question, they just don't wanna ask a counselor, they don't feel comfortable asking a counselor. Maybe the counselor doesn't even know like the answer to it, but you know, cop might know. So it could be good to have them. And then I did put, it could have a positive impact so that a student might decide to go into law enforcement as well.
Hashtag seniors. Train of thought here.
Well, I think like a lot of people in high school right now, they see a lot of teachers around them, and that, you know, then has them go, you know what, maybe actually teaching would be a good field for me. And so then students seeing an SRO in a school, and they're saying, oh, you know what, actually, this doesn't seem as taunting as I thought it was before, this doesn't seem as challenging, this doesn't seem however they perceived it before, it's not, it's more attainable to them. And they also get that one-on-one experience with them. So like career-wise, I think it's an amazing choice. Also, I was gonna say that I think having someone here already is gonna have a huge impact mentally with people who normally you would call the police department for. Because now instead of thinking of it as, oh my gosh, I just got the police department call on me, it's, oh, it's just our SRO, like I just have to have a conversation with our SRO. It's not, it doesn't seem as huge as a thing. It's still, like maybe it is a big thing, but this way they don't feel as like trapped, like in this hole that they can't get out of because now they have the police department called on them. And so having those personal connections inside the school is gonna be crucial for the district.
I saw firsthand, how effective having an officer in the schools can be. Building that relationship for one thing, and it did help with truancy or attendance problems. But also, like if something happened on the weekend, the officer might follow up with a student just to make sure that they're okay, and how they can help them on that Monday when they come back to school or something. So I did see a very positive impact having one in the district.
In our PLCs in St. Croix Falls, in mine especially, we divvy up the students, and each teacher is responsible for so many. And our job is to track their grades and their behaviors and stuff, and when some issues arise, we as a team discuss, what are we noticing with that kid? But then you're adding an SRO into the building as well. That is someone that has these other connections that us teachers don't have. So let's say on Monday comes up and Officer Tyler walks in and he knows like a student's family had an issue, whatever the issue may be, that we might not have been aware of, but all of a sudden that student is in class and he fails a quiz on Monday and we're thinking, I mean, it's just having that resource for staff to also know, like, it might not have been like how you taught it, it's just that kid is just family life, or that's it, like having that also at our hands, at the disposal, that communication factor. But then the connections that he, or whoever our SRO is, would be building with the community over the years that they are here. I don't know, I just think there's a lot of benefits of, I can't even speak, because I really just want this to happen. Because again, like I see it every day. I can't speak highly enough about it, so.
Have you ever had a staff member approach you and help them get the help they need?
Yeah,
Cause I think
Yeah,
that
I
could be a benefit as well. Clearly, it's not our main goal, but
yeah, I definitely have, had to help
Yeah.
with the certain, I don't know how much details I should. go
that's
into,
fine,
so.
that's fine. But I just see that as a benefit.
It wasn't about how to get a speeding ticket.
Right.
But you know, the middle initial is R for resource, and
Yep.
who knows what's available in the county more
Exactly,
than a police officer that has ties to the county in lots of different ways.
exactly.
So, and kind of what like Corey was talking about, of like kind of, I know more things that happen out in the community, like for example, something happened or like a kid ran away over the weekend, we're having some issues at home, I got a report from the county, and then I would write something up called a handle with care notice. Sometimes I get those reports from the county, but I usually get them from like the police department, and then I just inform admin that this student is under a handle with care, so it's just an awareness that they might be dysregulated or like something went wrong. They might be sleeping in their class, not because they were playing video games all night, because maybe their parents got arrested for domestic and they were there and witnessed it. So, but they don't know all those details. It's just an awareness program. So, and usually it's just like the admin gets notified, and then they notify the teachers, I believe, that have that. Yeah.
And AJ does that for us right now, but also when you're serving school districts where there's multiple different students and you don't know what school district they go to, all of those pieces, right? So he'll send a message, we send out the simple handle of care, so there's not information shared, still incredibly confidential, but it's about support.
I think it can't hurt to move forward with the grant.
So nobody opposes us at least stepping in.
We've talked about
Yay,
this for
thank
many
you. Thank you very much. I mean, these people gave time to us
Thank you guys
today.
for
Thank you so
showing up
much.
tonight.
Appreciate that a lot.
Glad to help.
Thanks for writing the grant with me, AJ.
Yeah, you guys got the tough job, we had the easy part.
As he runs on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right, that brings us to item C, which is review and approve resolution for debt prepayment.
Now you have the resolution, you'll notice that the amount has changed, it was $950, we brought that up to $955. The reason you'll see that it's $955 and not the $955,500 or $955,300 is these bonds have to be paid in $5,000 increments, so, we couldn't go to $960 because that's not, with the interest that it earned, it's not enough, so we went in the middle at $955. So we're just looking for the approval to move forward on this, so we can pay it on that May 28th.
The cost to do this was just to have the resolution done, so like $800 or something. I make the motion to go forward.
Motion by Jan? Second by Cory. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item 5, improving our instructional strategies supporting student learning. Item A is review and approve the 24-25 Osceola Virtual Academy.
So in your package, you saw kind of the history over time of where we've been with OVA and where we are this year. Again, predicting the numbers is difficult, so we've been 18 for a couple years and then we're at 12 this year. And the big question, the costs just remain the same. I do have a meeting with them next Friday to talk, so I don't know if that's gonna be, hey, guess what, our prices went up? I will come back to you if they did. But we do have the conversation every year about where are we at, what are we thinking, how do we move forward? So if you scroll down to the there you go, thank you. So it's the vendor, it's now Illuminate, they've changed names, I think 3 times in our time that we've been using them. they've been very good with customer service and being supportive. We have options, right now we offer K-12 virtual learning, and again, just a reminder, and Brooke, I guess that's what I'm calling you now, New Brooke. The virtual offerings that we have they come with teachers on the other side, but they don't interact visually with students. They will email and occasionally make a phone call. Students have videos that they watch and engage with, and students have help that they can get and access with a real live person on the other side, but it's not necessarily the teacher. So there are virtual programs where there's teachers, and certain times this is done 100% independently. In 6-12, if they're a K-5, they have to have a learning coach. So families have to commit to saying who's gonna be the learning coach that's gonna work alongside the student. So that's what makes this a little bit unique compared to others. And like I said, we've offered K-12 since we've started, but we can change if we want to. I know we talk at the table often about high quality education and wanting to ensure our students get the best education that they can have. You can't replace face-to-face education with online learning, but for some kids it's incredibly successful. And for some families it's a choice, because you can see elementary wise, we have 3 families that have made that decision, and one of the families has been doing it for 3 years in a row. And another is on their 2nd year, and they have 2 students that are engaged now, and they would homeschool if they didn't have this as a resource. So, again, just every year we have a conversation about it and say, what do we want to approve? Do we want to go K-12? Do we want to change it 6-12? Do we want to go 9-12?
I think that you have 5 juniors this year, and 1 senior.
Yes.
So that's 6 people. To me, this seems like a no-brainer if it's getting kids the education they need in our district. It seems like a no-brainer.
My only question is, are they being successful, or how is their progress being monitored? Because if they're not performing, do we pull back the contract?
We do, yes. So every week I will look at their progress, and they get a progress report email right from me. Super fun, I got every week, they're happy that I send it to them and their parents. And so they get the opportunity to see where they're at, and we've had to recall students back to the high school. And also, if they're a student who really desperately doesn't wanna go back to the high school, that's significant motivation. We've had one student that was struggling, we knew it. Hey, you need to go back to high school, you can stay in OBA, but you're gonna come into the high school doors and work under our watch to make sure you get caught up. And then, believe me, as soon as they're caught up, I get an email, can I start work, can you? Well, you know, get 1 more week, right? So we serve them, and we make sure that we don't allow kids not to graduate, because this is not for everybody. And some people think it's a great idea, and it's just not for their family. And other kids, we have one senior who, if we didn't have this option, I don't know that they would be able to graduate with us. So we pay very close attention to where they're at academically.
So then are you assuming there'll probably be 11 kids maybe next year?
I
As
think
we have
would-
1 senior dropping off?
You
I mean,
yes,
as
you
an
never know.
estimate?
Generally, I think we do the budget around 18, because we've had consistent 18 and 18.
Most of your younger kids, I mean, like you said, the ones that originally started with the kind of COVID started, you're not getting new younger kids.
Yeah.
Some-
Because I have a kindergarten this year.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Motion by Jen. Do you wanna go prove it to stay as it is, the K-12?
Second.
Second by Cesa. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed will be nay. That is approved. Item 6A, review and approve the 24-25 Health Partners Medical Insurance renewal.
You guys have a presentation or a packet in your paper packet that we'll be meeting with staff next week to go through. Last week or the week before, we brought forth the new proposal for help for 24-25. This is just giving a little bit more detailed information that we'll get to staff. So we're just looking for approval to move forward on that. That's that embedded plan, so rather than the straight $7,000 deductible, we'll now have that $3,500 embedded in there. The increase on the premium for staff is gonna go up $7.99 for a family, so very minimal cost. The risk is put back on the district, right, but that's because, we're taking that self-funding, we are self-funded, we have that very healthy balance. The potential risk is around $116,000, but again, we run the numbers and that self-funded balance could handle it, and that's saying that every person would beat that, every person that we have on that plan would beat that 3,500. That's probably likely not going to happen, but if it did.
Can you tell me what year this says here on this waiting? This got printed a little bigger than what the end was, if you were eligible for district health insurance on or before June 30th.
Oh, if you're eligible for the in lieu of?
Yeah. I guess, is it changing from last year?
No, that's just, in lieu of, January 30th, 2015. On or before June 30th, 2015.
Well, I would make a motion as chair to approve the 24-25 Health Partners medical insurance renewal. Second by Cesa. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item B is review and approve the 24-25 Health Partners dental insurance renewal.
And the information last week, there's virtually no change for the employees, there's no increase in that premium. We're just looking for that, go ahead and sign the contract with.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item C is review and approve the 24-25 professional exempt non-supervisory employees contracts.
Again, you guys have a copy of that in your paper packets. It's always good practice to review contracts every couple years. So this is something that we're taking a look at this year. We've had the district's attorney take a look at the current contract for professional exempt non-supervisory employee, i.e. the certified staff, i.e. teachers. As you can see, there are a few changes, so the changes would be in red and then with the strike through and some additions to the verbiage, so we'll just go through it. In that first section, taking out that assignment, that identified assignment, and just showing that that's an FTE of 1. That was the one change. And in that third section, adding in to that last sentence, additional duties or assignments may be given in areas where the employee is certified and where need is determined by the board, and then adding in its sole discretion. Going down to section 4, the termination language, adding automatically into that 4A. If the employee is not legally authorized to teach, this contract shall be void and contract shall automatically terminate, adding that word. Striking B, all the sentences in B, but adding the board may terminate this contract and discharge an employee during the term of this contract set forth in section 2. In the event that the employee violates a district or board rule, policy, procedure, handbook provision, or established conduct or performance expectation. If the board terminates this contract and the employee wishes to contest such termination, the employee may file a grievance under the district's grievance procedure. The grievance procedure shall be exclusive method for resolving all disputes regarding terminations made under this contract. It's just expanding, and we didn't have a lot of those details in it before. Again, just expanding and showing, that, whether they violate a board rule, a policy, or a handbook violation, and then adding that grievance procedure in there. In section C, adding some more verbiage. Employee may terminate this contract during the term of this contract set forth in section 2 by providing a 30 days written notice to the board. It previously said teacher resigning from his or her individual contract. We've changed that to employee who terminates this contract subject to section 4. Adding liquidated damages clause. I believe liquidated damages have, I don't know if they remain the same, but June 16th through July 15th. After July 16th through August 15th, it's a $500 liquidation, and August 16th or after, it's a $1,000 liquidation. This amount may be deducted from employee's last paycheck at the option of the board. At its sole discretion, the board may choose to waive any or all liquidated damages. In section D, just changing some of that verbiage, agreement to contract shall from will, and then set forth in section 2. And then after that, we go all the way down to 11, which is the savings clause, and then adding that verbiage for the savings clause. And those were the extent of the changes.
I know you guys have been working on this for a long time.
They're not drastic changes, it's just cleaning up some of that verbiage, adding some more specific language into some of those, particularly that piece about the violation, spelling out what the violation would be for handbook or.
Cleans up some of the gray area.
Yep.
And just for the record, contracts go out right around May 15th and are back June 15th.
Lord, what's your wishes?
The motion to approve the changes that's presented.
Motion by Jan, second by Brooke. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would be nay. That is approved. Item 7, the next committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the district office conference room. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the district office conference room. I would like to say thank you to all the admin assistants in the world, all the admin, our secretaries, and a special shout out to Ms. April, as we all be lost without her, so thank you so much for all you do. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, individual contracts, and 118.223 notice of non-renewal. Motion by Kaika.
I'll second it.
Second by Jan. Roll call.